There are a plethora of news sites, organizations, and establishments, all within the American fur trade, that enjoy deceiving the general public with claims of a humane and safe fur trade. While these claims seem to hold credibility, they quickly fall flat once challenged with heavy evidence of cruelty and peril. The fur trade should be outright banned from the United States, as it excludes humane methods of euthanasia, utilizes wretched methods of confinement, and as it acts as an extreme health hazard. Trappers, farmers, retail stores, and any individual who accommodates this cruelty fails to take into consideration the lives of millions of animals as well as their own health. Although the evidence against statements of humane treatment and euthanasia are overwhelming, Fur Commission USA, an association that represents 400 mink farmers, continues an attempt to affirm that the fur industry is carefully monitored. For instance, the practice of euthanasia is under the jurisdiction of the State Department of Agriculture's humane officers, who enforce anti-cruelty statutes. Under these statutes, anyone who mistreats an animal faces investigation, prosecution, fines, jail time, and even the lives of his or her animals. However, these statements are confronted with the fact that states who reported that their Department of Agriculture has statutory authority to regulate fur farms, not one reported that the department had exercised this authority by issuing regulation, thus undermining any argument that the fur trade is heavily regulated.
Okay.
In continuation, a significant amount of states have banned leg hold traps that are designed to hold an animal's limb so the rest of its fur is not damaged. Although this specific type of trap has been banned from a number of states, it does not indicate that the fur trade is cruelty-free. In fact, 1/3 of all fur sold in the U.S. comes from animals killed in steel jaw traps, which are legal in 43 states. These traps slam shut on an animal's limb, which causes excruciating pain and leaves the animal paralyzed and starving, sometimes even for days. In addition, the conibear trap, which is also commonly used, crushes an animal's neck by applying 90 pounds of pressure per square inch, leaving the animal to suffer for another 3 to 8 minutes while he or she slowly suffers to death. While there may be established guidelines and punishment for the offensive brutality against the fur-bearing animals, these rules do not ensure absolute cruelty-free treatment, as the fur trade continues to utilize appalling contraptions of death, thus further complementing a ban on the fur trade. Even as associations such as the previously mentioned Fur Commission USA persist in convincing the public of the great value in which they hold wildlife, it is evident that this so-called great value is utterly false. This deception begins with the fact that the American fur trade is not one that holds its innocent animals with respect, as they are butchered by the thousands and are subject to wretchedly inhumane methods of confinement. Animals farmed for their fur are imprisoned in cages for the remainder of their life, forced to endure intensive confinement. As a matter of fact, 85% of the fur industry's skins come from animals that are held captive on fur factory farms, where they are crammed into severely crowded, filthy wire cages. Foxes, minks, and ferrets are an example of this, as they spend the rest of their lives stacked on top of one another in barren cages with nothing beneath their feet save some wire mesh. Those at the top of the stacks are considerably more fortunate, as they are not subject to feces and water falling into their food from the animals imprisoned above. These unfit conditions evoke self-mutilation, sickness, infection, cannibalism, and rampant premature death. In support, wildlife biologist Mark Pimlott states that the animals held in captivity will suffer high mortality in the first few weeks of their confinement. Unfortunately, captive animals are susceptible to even more pain as death approaches. The previously mentioned statements of euthanasia are challenged by the reality that the main methods used to kill are gassing and electrocution. Animals such as foxes are routinely electrocuted using electrodes clamped in their mouths and inserted in their rectums. Since the current of electricity is not applied across the cranium, which would cause immediate unconsciousness, an excessive amount of pain is caused, and death will eventually result from conditions such as a heart attack. These heinous acts further demonstrate and emphasize the cruelty of a ban on the fur trade. Not only does the fur trade subject animals to sadistically callous death, however, it also subjects fur wearers to extreme dangers. Because of the fact that fur sheared from a dead animal will rot, manufacturers fight off decay through the application of a slew of chemicals that are designed to prevent decomposition. The main processing chemicals used are formaldehyde and chromium, which are both linked to cancers such as leukemia. In addition, the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, in the United States has previously fined 6 fur processing plants for causing high levels of pollution and for using solvents in fur dressing that may cause respiratory problems. Essentially, both humans and animals encounter ultimate death, as it has been found that fur clothing contains carcinogens, which is any substance that is directly involved in causing cancer. Altogether, it is more than apparent that the hazardous fur trade causes a greater amount of harm than positivity. While pro and anti-fur trade activists work passionately and tirelessly to denounce and condemn each other, it is pivotal that both perspectives reconcile and unify to use this passion and diligence to promote and preserve the basic rights of all animals.